Hope you're well. I won't be long this week. This is a fairly quick one. Just a reminder what I'm doing. I'm talking about what the leadership skills that you may need into the future. Two main forces I see coming is currently we've got a pandemic, which has sort of disrupted the world and how we work. But we've also got two other major forces that are happening. One is around digital transformation, the fact that we're all living and working just on this medium that you're watching me through right now. And that's becoming more pervasive and changing the way that work and life is done. And then the second is climate change, which is going to become and is a really, really big force that we're all going to need to respond to. And is already changing policies, choices, and all sorts of things in many ways. Our ability as leaders of businesses, as teams, as organizations to be able to grasp what's going to be required to operate successfully is what this series is all about. And let me first of all just sort of fill you in on what I've done so far and what we're going to do today. Okay, so here's the plan. So the plan is this, which is that we're going to be talking about what you're going to need. What we have done is we've talked about decision making, and most specifically, what we've done is spoken so far about the idea of that you've got those three domains of head, heart, gut. What we did last week was talk about deep empathy and the idea of really getting into the shoes of your client, and as machines and automation do more of the actual execution work, that's going to be the differentiator skill that you're going to have, and to be able to develop that. And I'm going to do more on that as the years go on. And today what we're talking about is that when you think about the situation of communicating to other humans for either influence or education, what are the things that you need to tell them to either get them to understand your idea or to get them to agree to your idea? In a world where more and more is done with through tools, technology tools, and in a world where climate change may be happening, you have to influence people to take action. You have to influence them to do things differently. And that's what today's all about. All right, so let's just review what we've done so far. We're talking about the human skills, the leadership skills that are going to be required in a more technological world. And we've covered decision making. We've covered empathy in the design process. And what we're going to cover today is the 4 essential questions. So let me get the right pen. Let's get this one here. It's not too big. First thing to recognize is that this framework is like all great things. Many ideas is a stolen framework from a lady called Bernice McCarthy, who's amazing, who's been around since like the 70s. And her original framework was the format framework. What she says is that if you've got to communicate an idea, a project, or a concept, and you need that person to feel like educated, inspired, and with a level of understanding, and you want to take them from someone who's kind of skeptical about your idea and going, yeah, I don't know if this is going to work for me, someone who has no knowledge about your idea, which is I've got no idea what they're talking about, or someone who could be resistant. If you want to transform skeptical into supporter, and you want to transform no knowledge into understanding, and you want to transform resistance to committed, this is the best framework I've ever come across to do that. I use it over and over again, and it's so simple and yet so powerful to do this. So highly recommended. So here it is. Let's sort of get stuck in. 4 domains, right, of things that you want to consider when you're communicating idea. Now, the order of them is not so as important. Traditionally, what you would do is the why, what, how, so what in that order, but you may want to flip that around depending on your audience, okay? So here's the 4 questions. The first thing you've got to answer is the why question. So this is really, again, you've got to understand it's the why for your specific audience. Okay, not the general why, but why is this important for your audience? All right. And in that, what you've really got to respond to is what's in it for me, for them, and really, how does this address either provide them benefit or remove a problem? Okay, so if we're talking about digital transformation and the need to use a new system, the purpose of that could be around about helping them in their daily job, do things quicker, faster, easier, and it could remove the problem of manual work. All right. Now, the second piece of that. So when anytime we're communicating or influencing, the key thing, one of the things that we need to communicate is the why. The second thing we need to communicate is the what. And most people, when they're learning something new, they're sitting there going, they're sort of asking themselves 2 key questions. What does this mean to me, and what do I need to do? Right, and that's the key. That's the why and the what part. So what we're doing here is what do I need to know? What are the core ideas? All right, so literally listing out, in sort of at the principle level, what are the 1, 2, or 3 core ideas, and how do they relate to me in my role? So the way I traditionally do that and think about communicating the what is by considering both sides of the brain. So the left brain, traditionally when I communicate a concept, you'll notice that I flip between sort of left brain ideas, which are logical and factual, and right brain ideas, which are stories, analogies, more emotional content. Okay, so the left brain wants to understand, the right brain wants to feel and connect. So when you explain ideas, I would recommend that you flip between the facts and grounded case studies and stories and analogies, and that when you present these 3 ideas, you kind of want to do it with a mix of those things. Make sense? So your first step in being able to communicate or influencing is making sure that you explain the why and the what. Once you've done that, the next step is then to communicate the how. So the how is really the question of, so how do I actually execute on this? How do I implement or execute on the principles or the ideas you've talked about? Now, what really works super well here is what we call a demo, or explaining steps. The other thing that works really well is case studies, because we all know that in reality, there's a big gap between an idea and the implementation of that idea in your business or in your life. And what we're trying to do with the how section is we're trying to close the gap between the idea and the implementation by giving them ideas, demos, case studies of how you can actually do it in real life, and giving them that grounded sense of what to do. So we're going to want to cover the why, we want to cover the what, and we want to cover the how. And then the final thing we want to do is cover the so what. So most people, when they understand the what, why, and how, they're asking themselves the question of, how would this work for me? How do I translate this from your world? Let me just make that a bit smaller so you can see it. Your world into my world. It's the kind of so what question. So that works for you, but what about me? how would that work for me? And what we're trying to do here is help them reflect on the why, what, and how, what they've just learned, and make the connection between how they can apply it. So there's sort of 2 steps in that. I think there's a great reflection piece individually, and then there's actually a collaboration piece. And often what's best is that in collaboration or in a conversation, people can say, you know, what are you thinking in terms of what are you going to apply? And so in the so what piece, what I often do is get people to stop and say, just think about the biggest insight you've had so far, and just talk to the person next to you. How are you going to apply that in your world? And it gets people engaged and thinking about how they're going to do that. So let me review what we've done, and let me get you to think about how you can apply this in your world. All right, step number 4. Before I do that, for those of you who are more detailed, I realized I haven't put a 4 there, and some of you are going, he hasn't put a 4 there. What are my 4 steps? We've talked about the idea of turning someone from skeptical, no knowledge, or resistant to your idea into someone who understands it as supportive and committed. When we do that, we need to answer 4 core questions. The what's in it for me, the why. What do they need to know, the core ideas, balancing the left and right brain. The how to do that, which is the gap between the idea and the implementation. And then the so what question around how do they translate it into their world. What I would love you to do is to think about, if you were able to take these 4 questions and use them on a project, something you had to communicate, a concept where you had to educate or influence, how would that work for you? If you were to design or plan out that communication, how might you structure the why, what, how, and so what into that communication or that way of operating? And let me know. Love to hear from you about how this works for you. And look, all the best with leading, living, and being with your teams in the week ahead. If you've got any questions or want to get in contact, you can do that either on this site or on any of my social media channels. Take care. Talk soon. See you. Bye.